Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. अंतरा श्रीमद् भागवतम की, श्रील प्रभुपाद की। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय, ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय, ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय, नारायणं नमस्कृत्यं नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरये। नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवतीरुत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी। मुखं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयते गिरिं, यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुं दीनतारिणं परमानन्दमाधवं श्रीचैतन्य ईश्वरम्। हरि ओम तत्सत्। What should I do? This one? It's not on. How should we turn it on? Reading from Canto 10. Janmashtami is coming up, so the plan was to have Krishna Katha series this whole month until Janmashtami. So we will be reading from 10th canto. And I was asked to summarize the first two chapters. So we'll read a verse, one verse that Prabhupada quotes very often. So it is Canto 10, Chapter 2, Text 32. 10 to 32. If anybody wants to pick the sloka, it is 10 to 32 from Srimad Bhagavatam. Canto 10, Chapter 2, Text 32. Ye anye Aravindaksha Vimuktamaninas Tvai Ashta Bhavat Avishuddha Buddhaya Aruhya Krichrena पदं तथा पतन्ति अदो अनादृत युष्माग्रया ये अन्ये अरविन्दाक्ष विमुक्तमानिनाः ये अन्ये अरविन्दाक्ष विमुक्तमानिनाः त्वय्यस्तभावा अभिशुद्धबुद्धया त्वय्यस्तभावात् अभिशुद्धबुद्धया आरुह्य कृच्छेन परं पदं तथा आरुह्य कृच्छ्रेण परं पदं तथा पतन्ति अधो अनादृत युष्मद अनग्रहाय पतन्ति अधो अनादृत युष्मद अनग्रया ये अन्ये अरविन्दाक्ष विमुक्तमानिनाः ये अन्ये अरविन्दाक्ष विमुक्तमानिनाः त्वय्यस्तभावात् अभिशुद्धबुद्धया त्वय्यस्तभावात् अभिशुद्धबुद्धया आरुह्य कृच्छ्रेण परं पदं तथा आरुह्य कृच्छ्रेण परं पदं तथा पतन्ति अधो अनादृत युष्मद अनग्रया पतन्ति अधो अनादृत युष्मद अनग्रया ये अन्ये अरविन्दाक्ष विमुक्तमानिनाः त्वय्यस्तभावात् अभिशुद्धबुद्धया आरुह्य कृच्छ्रेण परं पदं तथा पतन्ति अधो अनादृत युष्मात् अनग्रया ये अन्ये अरविन्दाक्ष विमुक्तमानिनाः त्वय्यस्तभावात् अभिशुद्धबुद्धया आरुह्य कृच्छ्रेण परं पदं तथा पतन्ति अधो अनादृत युष्मात् अनग्रया ये अन्ये अरविन्दाक्ष विमुक्तमानिनाः त्वय्यस्तभावात् अभिशुद्धबुद्धया आरुह्य कृच्छ्रेण परं पदं तथा पतन्ति अधो अनादृत युष्मात् अनग्रया ये अन्ये अरविन्दाक्ष विमुक्तमानिनाः त्वय्यस्तभावात् अभिशुद्धबुद्धया आरुह्य कृच्छ्रेण परं पदं तथा पतन्ति अधो अनादृत युष्मात् अनग्रया Anybody would like to repeat?
ये अन्ये अरविन्दाक्ष विमुक्तमानिनाः
ये अन्ये अरविन्दाक्ष विमुक्तमानिनाः
त्वय्यस्तभावात् अभिशुद्धबुद्धया
त्वय्यस्तभावात् अभिशुद्धबुद्धया
आरुह्य कृच्छ्रेण परं पदं तथा
आरुह्य कृच्छ्रेण परं पदं तथा
पतन्ति अधो अनादृत युष्मत् अनग्रया
पतन्ति अधो अनादृत युष्मत् अनग्रया ये अन्ये अरविन्दाक्ष विमुक्तमानिनाः त्वय्यस्तभावात् अभिशुद्धबुद्धया आरुह्य कृच्छ्रेण परं पदं तथा पतन्ति अधो अनादृत युष्मत् अनग्रया Ye anye arvindakshamuktamaninas Tvayasta bhavada vishuddha buddhaya Aruhya krichrena param padam tata Patanti ado anadrutayusmadangraya. Mataji's.
ये अन्ये अरविंदाक्ष विमुक्तमानिना
Ye anye aravindaksha vimuktamaninas
त्वयस्त भावाद विशुद्ध बुद्धया
Tvayasta bhavata vishuddha buddhaya
आरुह्य कृष्णेन परम पदम तथा
Aruhya krichrena param padam tata
पतन्ते अधो अनादृत युष्मदन्धयः
Patanti ado anadrutayushmadangraya. Ye anye aravindaksha vimuktamanina Tvayasta bhavata vishuddha buddhaya Aruhya krishena param padam tata Patanti ado anadrutayushmadangraya. Ye anye aravindaksha vimuktamaninas Tvayasta bhavata vishuddha buddhaya Aruhya krichrena param padam tata Patanti ado anadrutayushmadangraya. Word meaning? Ye anye, anyone or all others. Aravindaksha, O lotus-eyed one. Vimukta manina, falsely considering themselves free from the bondage of material contamination. Twayi, onto you. Asta bhavat, speculating in various ways, but not knowing or desiring more information on your lotus feet. Avishuddha buddhaya, whose intelligence is still not purified and who do not know the goal of life. Aruhya, even though achieving. Krichrena, by undergoing severe austerities, penances and hard labor. Param Padam, the highest position, according to their imagination and speculation. Tata, from that position. Patanti, they fall. Ada, down into material existence again. Anadrita, neglecting devotion to. Yushmat, your. Anagrihya, lotus feet. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki. Translation. Someone may say that aside from devotees who always seek shelter at the Lord's lotus feet, there are those who are not devotees who have accepted different processes for attaining salvation. What happens to them? In answer to this question, Lord Brahma and the other demigods said, O Lord, O lotus-eyed Lord, although non-devotees who accept severe austerities and penances to achieve the highest position may think themselves liberated, their intelligence is impure. They fall down from their position of imagined superiority because they have no regards for your lotus feet. I'll read the second portion around again. O lotus-eyed Lord, although non-devotees who accept severe austerity and penances to achieve the highest position may think themselves liberated, their intelligence is impure. They fall down from their position of imagined superiority because they have not regarded your lotus feet. Purport. I think it's a little lengthy purport. We will read it. Aside from devotees, there are many other non-devotees known as karmis, jnanis or yogis, philanthropists, altruists, politicians, impersonalists and voidists. There are many varieties of non-devotees who have their respective ways of liberation. But simply because they do not know the shelter of the Lord's lotus feet, although they falsely think that they have been liberated and elevated to the highest position, they fall down. As clearly stated by the Lord himself in Bhagavad Gita 9.3, Ashraddadana Purusha Dharmaskya Asya Parantapa Aprapyamam Nivartante Mrityu Samsara Vartmani. Those who are not faithful on the path of devotional service cannot attain me, O conqueror of foe, but return to birth and death in this material world. It does not matter whether one is a karmi, jnani, yogi, philanthropist, politician, or whatever. If one has no love for the lotus feet of the Lord, one falls down. That is the verdict given by Lord Brahma in this verse. There are persons who advocate accepting any process and who say that whatever process one accepts will lead to the same goal. But that is refuted in this verse, where such persons are referred as Vimukta Manina, signifying that although they think that they have attained the highest perfection, in fact they have not. In the present day, big politicians all over the world think that by scheming they can occupy the highest political post, that of the president or prime minister. But we can actually see that even in this life, such big prime minister, presidents or politicians, because of being non-devotees, fall down, patanti ada. To become president or prime minister is not easy. One must work very hard, aruhya krichrena, for achieving the post. And even though one may reach his goal, at any moment one may be kicked down by material nature. In human society, there have been many instances in which great exalted politicians have fallen from government and became lost in historical oblivion. The cause of this is Avishuddha Buddhaya. Their intelligence is impure. The Shastras say, Nate Vidu Swartagatim Hi Vishnu, Bhagavatam 7.531. One achieves the perfection of life by becoming a devotee of Vishnu. But people do not know this. Therefore, as stated in Bhagavad Gita, Klesho Adhikataras Tesham Abhyakta Sakta Chetasam. Persons who do not ultimately accept the Supreme Personality of Godhead and take to devotional service, but who instead are attached to the impersonalism and voidism, must undergo great labor to achieve their goal. Shreya Shrutim Bhaktim Udasya Te Vibho Kleshyanti Ye Kevala Bodha Labdaya. To achieve understanding, such persons work very hard and undergo severe austerities, but their hard labor and austerities themselves are their only achievement, for they do not actually achieve the real goal of life. Dhruva Maharaj at first wanted to achieve the greatest material kingdom and the greatest material position than his father. But when he was actually favored by the Lord, who appeared before him to give him the benediction he desired, Dhruva Maharaj refused it, saying, Swamin Kritato Asmin Varam na yache. Now I am fully satisfied. I do not want any material benediction. This is the perfection of life. Yam labdva chaparam labdye manyate na adhikam tata. If one can achieve the high shelter of the lotus feet of Lord, one is fully satisfied and does not need anyone for any material benediction. At night, no one can see the lotus, for lotuses blossom only during the daytime. Therefore, the word Aravindaksha is significant. One who is not captivated by the lotus eyes or transcendental form of the Supreme Lord is in darkness, exactly like one who cannot see a lotus. One who has not come to the point of seeing the lotus eye and the transcendental form of Shyamasundara is a failure. Premanjana Charita Bhakti Vilochanena Santas Sadaiva Hridayeshu Vilokayanti. Those who are attached to the Supreme Personality of Godhead in love always see Lord's lotus eyes and lotus feet, whereas others cannot see the Lord's beauty and are therefore satisfied as Anadita Yushmat Angraya, or neglectful of Lord's personal form. Those who neglect the Lord's form are surely failures in every path in life. But if one develops even a little love of Supreme Personality of Godhead, one is liberated without difficulty. Swalpam apiyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bayat. Therefore, the personality of Godhead recommends in Bhagavad Gita, Manmana bhava madbhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru. Simply think of me, become my devotee, worship me, and offer some slight homage to me. Simply by this process, one is guaranteed to return home back to Godhead and thus attain the highest perfection. The Lord further affirms in Bhagavad Gita, Brahma Bhuta Prasanna Atma na sochati na kangshati sama sarveshu bhuteshu matbhaktim labate param. Bhaktyamam abhijanati yavan yaschasmi tattvataha tato mam tattvato jnatva vishate tat anantaram. One who is thus transcendently situated at once realizes the Supreme Brahman and becomes fully joyful. He never laments nor desires to have anything. He is equally disposed to every living entity. In that state, he attains the pure devotional service unto me. One can understand the Supreme Personality as he is only by devotional service. And when one is in full consciousness of the Supreme Lord by such devotion, he can enter into the kingdom of God. Om Tat Sat. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadara Srivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Mukam karoti vachalam pangurna gayate girim. Yat kripatam aham vande Shri Guru Dimatarinam Paramanandam Shri Chaitanya Ishvara. Hare Krishna. So this was a little heavy verse, especially the purport of Srila Prabhupada, and the sloka itself is a beautiful sloka quoted by Brahma and the demigods. So one may wonder, like we spoke about Krishna Katha, and why is such a heavy verse actually coming here? Right. So Bhagavatam also has a lot of philosophy in it. It is not that people as generally think it is just story, right? There's a lot of philosophy in it, and it's a combination of philosophy and nice pastimes of the Lord, mainly to actually instill faith in us, to develop a desire for us to go back home, back to Godhead. As we see the purport, Prabhupada also says that Nate vidu swartagatim hi Vishnu, that Vishnu is the goal of one's life, right? There is, our scriptures actually say that, should keep closer. Okay. Our scriptures actually say that we should always remember Krishna and never forget Krishna. Right? Smartavya satatam Vishnu vismartavyam na jatujit sarve vidhi nishedayor etayor eva kinkara. That the goal of life is to always remember Krishna or Vishnu and never forget him. That's the goal of every devotee's life, to never forget Krishna. Many times we see in the prayers of devotees also that they simply pray for saying that, oh Lord, whatever you want, let it happen with me in my life. But I don't want to forget you. I always want to remember you. That's how the devotees actually pass their time. They simply pass their time wherever they may be, whether in hell or heaven. They wanted to remember the Lord and then they pass the time. Not how today's world is. Today's world, they have created so many entertainments like your handheld devices. It actually can distract us so much. Simply by holding it in our hand, we get distracted. We spend hours and hours of time actually on that and not knowing how the time actually passes. In fact, if that small smartphone is actually taken away from one person's hand for one day, they go mad thinking they don't know what to do in their life. They have got so much addicted, so much conditioned. Just like one scientist was actually doing an experiment. He kept a box, a closed box, and he kept a rat inside. And the rat was actually placed in that box, starving for several days. And then the scientist actually had a small lid. It opens up the box, and then he opens the lid, and at a particular time in a day, he drops a piece of bread and then closes the lid back. So the rat got so much accustomed to that as soon as it sees a sunlight, the sunlight actually comes, and then when bread falls from that, and then the sunlight goes off. That's all it knows. It doesn't actually see anything outside in the world. All it sees is when light comes, bread falls, light goes off. That's all. So that's how its life was. It was so conditioned that every time when light comes, bread will come. And the scientist actually once he did such an experiment that he opened up that lid and he did not put the bread, he just closed it. And he wanted to see how the rat reacts to it. The rat was in fact going mad. It was actually going around the box everywhere trying to find that piece of bread, but it could not find that piece of bread that day. It was literally going mad. The same way, we will also go mad if the smartphone is taken off today. That's how addicted we are these days. We are so addicted. Any free time we actually get, we take the smartphone and keep browsing it. That's how life is going on now. Whether we want it, don't want it, whether it's something needed, not needed, we take that and then start using it. Like you can imagine how the next generation of people will be. At least in our generation, I believe most of you are here in 25s, 30s, 40s, or touching 50s. In the generation that we have seen, our parents, our elders, they were doing some spiritual activity and they were taking us to temple. In fact, like the entertainment means they actually go to Vishnu temple, Krishna temple, and then they go spend some time there and then talk something about Ramayana, Mahabharata and all those things, and then they come back. This generation, it is different. You want to hear Ramayana and Mahabharata, open a YouTube and show. Right? There is no Krishna Katha really happens in the home. Nobody discusses about Bhagavatam. Nobody discusses about Ramayana. And the children grow up seeing the mobile phone. And we can see how much extent they are going to jump in the future. We cannot just imagine how things are going to go worse. I'm not saying that you take away the smartphone and live without smartphone. Of course, these days things happen only through smartphone. Right? So we have to live with it, but we need to know also how to live with it. If we don't learn how to live with it, then it's going to be a big problem for us and for next generation also. Right? So conditioning of life is something all of us are going through. Right? Somebody else makes an agenda for our life, that how our life should be. They make the agenda for us and they dictate us saying, this is how you need to do, this is how you need to live. You have to come at 9 o'clock to office and you'll be able to live only at 9 o'clock or 8 o'clock or whatever. They put the agenda on us and they actually make us live like that. And we plan whole of our life for just achieving their agenda. That's how things are going on today. Right? We don't get so much of time to actually hear about Krishna Katha. But Bhagavatam, Krishna Katha is not just simply story. Krishna Katha also involves a lot of philosophy also. Prabhupada used to actually say that Bhagavad Gita is also Krishna Katha. Right? There is no story in Bhagavad Gita. Of course, there is a story there. That's a story of love between Arjuna and Krishna. right? So that story is there, obviously, but it has a lot of intricate philosophy also in it, which is needed. Philosophy is not just only to learn and memorize and just speak about. Philosophy is there to apply. When we are squeezed, when we are in difficult situation, that's when philosophy needs to be applied. Unless we apply philosophy, we cannot actually advance in Krishna consciousness. If we want to advance in Krishna consciousness and Krishna bhakti, we have to apply philosophy. We have to know what it is. For example, Krishna talks about Sattva Guna, Rajoguna, and Tamoguna. We have to actually see ourselves. Oh, now I am in Rajoguna. Right? We should actually examine ourselves internally. Now I am in Sattva Guna. Now I am in Tamoguna. That's why I am doing all these things. I am talking like this. I am getting angry now. Just because somebody provoked me in my home, I am getting angry now. And I could see, we should actually see ourselves how we are actually working upon on the stimulus that is being given by this world. There are so many situations that are actually given to us in this world, and how we are reacting to those situations. We have to apply the Shastra and see it through the Shastra. That's why it is called as Shastra Chakshu. We have to actually see how a person is actually dealing with in this material world through the eyes of scriptures. How every person is actually conditioned within these three modes of material nature. How a devotee is actually above, transcendental to these three modes of material nature. We have to actually see that. We have to apply philosophy when we actually observe this world. If we live without observing through the eyes of the Shastra, we are as good as living a life of a cat or a dog. Because a cat or a dog is also busy in arranging its own food, arranging its own shelter, protecting its own family, all those things. Procreation. Ahara, Nidra, Bhaya, Maituna. That's how the cat or dog spends his life. If we also don't examine this world through the eyes of the Shastras, through the instruction that the Lord is actually giving in Bhagavad Gita, if we don't apply that and see the whole world in that vision, then it becomes really tough for us to progress in Krishna consciousness. It becomes tough. Krishna consciousness will only remain external. We simply remain on the surface of the ocean then. We don't go dive deep in it. The more we go deeper, the more we will actually see that there is wonders here. Where do we get pearl in the ocean? Deep inside the ocean. Right? That's where we actually get all the gems. Right? Precious gems. So if you want precious things in Krishna consciousness, we have to actually dive deep into it. The more we dive deeper, the better it is for us. And we have to dive deeper when we have the age. Not then when the age is gone, then we start up Krishna Bhakti. That's actually, in fact, very late. Right? Nobody offers a flower like this to the Lord. Everybody offers a flower like this to the Lord. I know many devotees, they actually go, not sure if they are ISKCON devotees, but outsiders also. They actually go to the market very early in the morning or so, where the flowers are actually even. There is a nice story of Ramanujacharya and one of his disciples, I forgot, Anantalvar, if I am right, who was at Tirupati? Anantacharya. Yeah. So this Anantacharya, he was such a personality where he used to actually pluck the flowers of the Lord very early in the morning, and before the flower actually blossoms and opens up, he used to go and offer it to Balaji. Right? Why? Because he wants when the flower opens up, at that time the fragrance that is coming from the flower, that he wants the Lord to smell it. Not the flower which is actually like fully blossomed, opened up, or definitely not the flower which is like dying. Right? So it's very important that we actually also offer ourselves to the Lord when we are actually nicely, at least, okay, wo to ho gaya, or like a budding stage to ho gaya abhi, right? At least blossoming stage is there. Something is opened up. At least that time we should actually offer it to the Lord. right? Not the time when everything is actually closed up, winding down, and you're about to die. That same Ram Naam Satya hai, baki sab jarte hain, wo sab nahi chalega, right? It has to be done at right age. That's why Prahlad Maharaj also says that Kaumaram Acharit Pragyam, that at the age of 5, the Bhagavata Dharma should be actually started off, not at the age later. Right? So that's how our Vedic culture was. Our Vedic culture, Mera Bharat Mahan, they said to be Mahan because people were given real education that Krishna Bhakti or Vishnu Bhakti is the goal of life. That's how our culture was. They have been taught by teaching them Ramayana and Mahabharata. All that they heard was only that. They heard great about Ramayana, Rama and Krishna. And they heard about that and they grew up in that way. And naturally, they were all becoming devotees of the Lord. Naturally. It wasn't difficult for people to actually take up Krishna consciousness or devotional service at that age because from the childhood, they have been hearing the same thing. And they grew up with that thing about hearing Rama and Krishna. And that's how they grew up. So it was not difficult for them. But at this stage, it is completely different. It is completely different. We have not been taught about all those topics at all. It is being considered as something low, something mythology, a story that was actually cooked up which never existed. That's what mythology means. It never existed and it was just a story to actually bring up some kind of a harmony, some kind of a social things within the community. That's not the one. That's something Britishers have actually brought it to defame our Indian culture and to bring in Western culture. Western culture means what? Work like donkey. Right? Prabhupada used to say, like, what does a washerman do? A washerman ties a carrot in front of the donkey, and the donkey thinks, saying, the moment I take one step, I will reach the carrot. But what happens? The carrot moves along with the donkey. Right? And Prabhupada used to say that why this donkey is carrying so much of load for this washerman. All that the washerman actually gives is a morsel of grass. And Prabhupada said that grass is available everywhere. Why should the donkey work so hard? He spends all of his lifetime working, so low, taking so much of load, and for what? For that grass which is available everywhere. Nothing else the washerman actually gives. Right? Our Vedic culture was so nice. Prabhupada used to say that in Vedic culture, people never used to sell food grains. Food grains were never sold for money. It was actually given as dana. It was given in charity. And people who have lot of food grains in their home, they were considered to be rich. They were considered to be rich, in fact. Right? And people used to never actually sell food. They used to make food in their home and they used to actually offer it in charity. That's how life was. It was very easy for living. Anybody who is hungry, they can go to anybody's home and they can actually take bhiksha. And it is a grahastha must make sure saying nobody is starving before they eat. That's one of the rule of grahastha ashram.